A billionaire shoved his house keys into my wet, shaking hand in the middle of a Los Angeles downpour and told me to take my baby and go home, to his mansion. No ID check, no contract, just a credit card in a kitchen drawer and a stranger saying, "Trust me." If it were you, what would you have done? Drive on by, or stop and gamble everything on a mother and her child? My name is Simone, and that night the bus shelter wasn't shelter at all. The roof was cracked. The rain was mean. The cardboard over my daughter's head kept sagging, and I kept lying. "We're okay, baby. We're okay." My stomach had been empty since yesterday morning. The last of Hope's formula was gone before noon, and that cold panic every parent knows sat on my chest like a cinder block. Headlights broke through the sheets of water. A black town car slowed, and a man in a dark suit stepped into the storm with an umbrella and a look that said he saw me, not just the mess around me. He crouched to my level so I didn't have to crane my neck like a beggar and said over the roar of rain, "I'm not going to hurt you. What's your name?" "Simone," I said, "and this is Hope. How long since you ate?" "Yesterday." "How long since she ate?" "This morning." He nodded like he'd reached the end of a math problem, and the answer demanded action. "I'm Christopher. I have a house I'm leaving for a few weeks. It's empty. Will you stay there, please?" He took off his key ring, slid the heavy one free, pressed it into my palm with a business card on top, address scribbled on the back, and tucked cash under my fingers like he was afraid I might refuse. Why, I asked? Because it made no sense, because good things that easy usually have teeth. Because someone needs to, and I can, he said. I didn't trust the world, but I trusted the way he looked at my daughter like she mattered. The cab driver side-eyed my soggy jacket when I gave him the address. You know that look like he's waiting for the punchline. Then the gate opened, and the house was a movie set. White columns, tall windows, a door that swung without squeaking, because someone always takes care of it. I turned the key, stepped into a foyer big enough to hold my whole past, and most of my fears, and I just stood there dripping, terrified that if I moved, the dream would pop. The refrigerator had food with color oranges, milk eggs, fresh fruit that didn't come in a can. The linen closet held towels that felt like clouds. The bathroom had hot water that didn't sputter, and I cried in the shower so hard I had to sit down. And if you've never cried in hot water, after weeks of cold, you don't know how loud relief can be. In the morning, taped to the fridge, a note in neat handwriting. "Welcome home, Simone. Use what you need. Mrs. Patterson comes Tuesday and Friday. Her number is below. CB." That was the first time I believed the keys weren't some cruel joke. I fed Hope until her little hands relaxed, made myself a sandwich that tasted like a promise, and whispered to the quiet house, if a man who doesn't know me can trust me like this, I'll treat this place like a sacred thing. I started small. The guest room at the end of the hall I chose for us, the bathroom where I'd left steam ghosts on the mirror, the kitchen with drawers that glided instead of squealed. I opened blinds, cracked windows, chased out the closed-up smell. A house carries grief in the corners, you know what I mean. Dust as thick as memories. At 9 a.m. that Friday, the doorbell chimed like a piano, and a woman with silver hair and warm brown eyes stepped in with the kind of smile that makes you stand up straighter. "Mrs. Patterson," she said, and then without asking permission, held out her hands for Hope. The baby wrapped fingers around hers like she'd found the rope to the world. "Did he give you the keys in the rain?" she asked, and when I nodded, she laughed soft and kind. That man has his wife's heart. Over tea at the kitchen table, she told me the story of the house of Rebecca, the wife taken by cancer, at 39 of a home that dimmed when the laughter left. He lives here, but he doesn't live here, she said. Do you understand? I did. Grief doesn't just break you. It breaks the places that hold you. Mrs. Patterson didn't make me feel like charity. She made me feel like a first-day hire. Here's where the window sticks. Here's the plant that's always thirsty. Here's the system for the pantry. Rebecca kept books by author but grouped by mood. Here are the good towels, use them. Write down what you need. Diapers, formula, a phone that actually works. Rebecca didn't believe in cheaping out on people. That afternoon, while Hope napped, I opened a laptop from Christopher's office with careful hands and a careful heart and searched GED programs. I found a free online course and hit enroll with a shaky finger. It felt like stepping through a door that had always been locked. A rhythm arrived, not glamorous, not even interesting to anyone who hasn't been without. But to me, it was life. Mornings were feedings and tiny socks. Then I picked a room and gave it back its breath. I dusted the wedding photos of Rebecca and Christopher confetti in their hair eyes bright, and I promised a woman I'd never met that I would take care of the home she left behind. When Christopher called from Singapore, his voice carried the edge of a man who hadn't slept on the right pillow in too long. But there was warmth when he said, "Mrs. Patterson tells me the house feels different already." "Maybe you're hearing Hope," I joked, "she's loud." He laughed, and it surprised me not because I didn't think he could, but because the sound made the rooms feel less hollow. At the community center 2 miles away, I found a parenting class and a stroller in an upstairs closet that moved like a dream even over cracked sidewalks. The class was a small circle of women who'd seen me asleep on a bus station bench once, and now saw me under fluorescent lights that didn't flicker. Tasha, with a smile that could talk you into anything, said, "A few of us meet at the park on Thursdays, come sit with us." We sat in the sun, babies chewing on safe toys and grass, and I felt community take root like a stubborn weed. Do you think that's fair? That some of the strongest parents I know have to earn a calm afternoon like it's a luxury? Christopher's trip stretched from 3 weeks to 5, business dragging its feet the way business does when too many people want credit. We talked once a week, quick check-ins that slowly became conversations, him telling me about a partner named James, who said the Keys story was either the most generous or most foolish thing he'd ever heard me telling him about algebra coming back like a ghost, about the way light hits the sunroom at 4 p.m. and makes the dust dance. "Are you comfortable staying?" he asked, and I was honest, yes, I am, and also I'm careful. Every move, every dollar like I'm carrying a full cup. Then one afternoon the front door opened and I heard suitcase wheels on tile. He hadn't told me the exact time. He wanted to see the house as it really lived. I was stirring a pot and singing nonsense to Hope when he stepped into the doorway, and I watched a man try to understand a miracle he didn't order. "Please call me Christopher," he said. "We've talked too much for Mr. Bennett." And he reached out. Not for me, for Hope. She leaned toward him like she'd been practicing. The house took a breath. We walked room to room. I explained why I moved the reading chair to chase the afternoon light, how I kept Rebecca's systems but added labels for the future, how I organized the pantry so things you need when you're tired aren't on the top shelf. He asked about expenses, and I handed him a folder. Everything logged, receipts clipped, and he said, "I trust you," and I said thank you, "but I want you to see it anyway, because trust is a two-way street." In the nursery with the pale yellow walls, I'd rolled during nap times with a closet of tiny clothes that actually fit. He blinked back tears, and I said thank you for making this possible. And he said, "You made it possible." I had space. He offered me a job with a contract and a salary that didn't feel like a favor. Household manager. Keep the house running, manage vendors, coordinate with Mrs. Patterson. Keep studying, build your future. I took it with tears I didn't try to hide. We settled into a rhythm that was almost family, but careful because feelings can sprint faster than wisdom, and neither of us wanted to trip. Then his brother walked in without knocking and blew the calm right off the table. Thomas was all sharp edges and lawyer-focus, hands in pockets, eyes in cross-exam mode. He clocked the baby on my hip, clocked the furniture that wasn't where it used to be, and said, "So it's true. You gave your house to a homeless woman." My face went still, but inside I could feel the old heat. Christopher stepped forward, steady voice with steel in it. "I didn't give my house away. I extended help. She works here now." Thomas looked at me. "What are your qualifications?" "Not much on paper," I said, "but I care about this home, I respect it, and I'm learning fast, because every day I choose to." Christopher said, "That's enough." Thomas kept going. "You can't fill the hole grief left by filling rooms." And I said, "You don't have to believe me, but you know your brother. You know he's not a fool, maybe trust him to know what's right for his life." It wasn't a speech, it was breath. He asked to see the house, so I walked him through each room, explained memory versus function, showed how we kept Rebecca present, without turning her into a shadow over everything. By the end, he was quiet in a different way. "I'm sorry," he said. "I came to protect my brother, not to disrespect you." That night, he called Christopher again and said another thing in a voice 8 shades softer. "Be careful. I saw how you look at her. I saw how she looks at you. Make sure everyone understands the boundaries." We did. One night in the sunroom, windows opened to a breeze that smelled like lemon, and new beginnings, we put the truth on the table. "What are we doing?" I asked, because we weren't just employer and employee, not anymore. But we weren't a couple either, not with this power imbalance. He said the word first, power. And I said the rest. If this goes wrong, I lose my home, my job, my stability, and I can't wager my daughter's life on romance. He didn't flinch. "Then let's fix the imbalance before we cross any lines," he said. "How?" 6 months. You finish your certification, build a portfolio, save, get your own place, become independent. Then, if we still feel this way, we choose each other as equals. Smart. And it stung. Yeah, that happened. I chose the slower road because the fast one didn't lead to a future I could stand on. Right then, the universe tossed the twist. Next morning, phone call from a number I didn't know, voice official, but not cruel. "Ms. Jackson, this is Child Welfare Services. We received a report about your living situation and need to schedule a home visit." My hands went cold. "Report from who?" "I can't disclose that." "If it were you, how fast would the worst case spin up in your head? How fast would you picture someone taking your child because a stranger doesn't like the way your story reads?" Christopher thought it was Thomas. At first he said it out loud, but when we asked, Thomas swore it wasn't. And I believed him. I didn't sleep. I cleaned what was already clean, laid out. GED, progress, employment letter, medical records, bottles, schedules, like my life was a presentation, and I needed an A. The social worker arrived at 2 on the dot. Clipboard, tired eyes, a posture that said she's seen everything and still hopes people can change. She watched me feed, Hope watched me talk to her, checked outlets, crib slats, the nursery, the pantry. She asked me how I got here, and I told the truth, not the embellished version, not the sanded edges. Christopher walked her through the contract, the arrangement, the boundaries. After an hour, she closed her notebook and said, "I'll be honest, I came expecting to find a problem. Instead, I found a child who is thriving and a mother doing everything right with appropriate support. I'll file to close this today." When she left, my legs gave out. "Do you think that's fair?" That one anonymous call can turn your life into an exam you didn't know you'd scheduled. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. Thomas called later to apologize again and to say he'd found out who made the report. Not an enemy, a stranger from the park who recognized me from before and thought I was being coerced. Not malice, fear mixed with ignorance. It didn't make it less terrifying, but it made it human. And it sharpened my resolve to build a life no one could question. 6 months moved in a straight line. I finished my interior design and home organization certification, built a portfolio of before and afters for every room I touched, wrote down why I chose each change. Flow light, memory function. My friends from the park became clients. Then their friends called Saturday afternoons, turned into paid projects, and proof I could do work beyond these walls. I saved, cooked at home, learned 10 ways to love beans, and rice, said no to things that weren't needs, said yes to opportunities that stretched me. Mrs. Patterson showed up with recipes, with pep talks, with the look that says you've got this whether you believe it yet or not. Christopher and I stayed honest. Laughter over dinner space where space belonged, patience when emotions tried to sprint. On the 6-month mark, I signed a lease on a small 2-bedroom, 15 minutes away. Not grand, not magazine pretty, but clean, safe hours. Moving day looked like family. Thomas carrying boxes, Mrs. Patterson organizing the kitchen, like a symphony, Christopher assembling a crib, while pretending the directions made sense the first time. When the door closed, and it was just me and Hope on the floor, surrounded by cardboard and the hum of our own refrigerator, I felt something dangerous in the best way. I felt joy I'd earned. A few days later, he asked me to dinner. A real date. I wore a green dress, he brought flowers, we talked about going slow, about honoring Rebecca's memory, about Hope's bedtime stories, and who gets the voices on which nights. I said, I know where I want this to go. Toward a future we choose, not a situation we slide into. Before any ring, he took me to the garden behind his house at sunset. There, where grass used to be, stood a stone fountain, whispering water, and a bench with a plaque. For Rebecca, who believed in second chances, and for Simone, who proved they're possible. My throat closed. Honor and permission in one line of metal letters. He proposed months later in the sunroom. No flash, just light and truth. And I said yes with tears that tasted like relief, not fear. We married under the open sky, Hope as flower girl, petals everywhere, but where they were supposed to go. Everyone laughing because joy doesn't care about perfect choreography. Christopher adopted Hope because he already was her father in the ways that count. I moved back, not as a guest, not as an employee, but as a wife building a future, and my business kept growing. I hired help, wrote articles about homes that hold grief without letting it swallow the living, sat on panels where people asked for secrets, and I told them the non-secret. Work hard, accept help with humility, return, trust with action. Now here's where I end and begin in the same breath. Was it right for a billionaire to hand me his keys in the rain? No paperwork, no safety net beyond his word. Do you think that's fair, that my daughter's safety hinged on the kindness of one man rather than a system designed to catch families before they fall? I carry both truths at once. Generosity saved me, full stop. But I want a world where safety isn't luck, where dignity isn't a favor, where a mother doesn't need a miracle to keep her child warm. Charity is beautiful. Structure is necessary. Compassion with a plan is how you change more than one life at a time. So I'm asking you, if you were Christopher that night, would you have stopped? Would you have handed over the keys? Or would you have called a hotline and kept driving? If you were me, would you have taken them, walked through that gate, believed a stranger's promise? Tell me in the comments. What feels right? What feels risky? What do we owe to each other when the rain comes down and the roof is broken? Share this with someone who needs a second chance or someone who has one to give. And if this story made you feel anything at all, hit subscribe, and stick around. Because the next chapter we tell might be yours, and what happens next might just blow your mind.